KC Joyner, ESPN.com NFL Insider, jumps on board every Monday to break it all down with us here, KC. And you look at this one, and I don't know that a lot of people expected Philadelphia to go in there, but I think that's the kind of game where you see the separation in talent, where that Seattle team is just far more talented than Philadelphia is. Philadelphia needs to play almost a perfect game, and they were far from perfect yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's actually a perfect analogy there to say that this game illustrates the difference. Because we're thinking for a time this season, okay, Philadelphia, they're good. Are they really good? What's their ceiling? How good are they? And then you get in a matchup like this against the Seattle team. It's playing really well right now. Seattle's probably a top 5 team in the league right now, and it's at Seattle, so you've got to throw that in there too. But you're just looking at and just the number of things that the Eagles did wrong. It's it just illustrates that okay, there's a lot of talent-wise, and there's a lot of other things that this team has to do. They've got a good future, I think the Eagles do, but this illustrates that it's a long road ahead, not a short road to be one of the top teams.
Yeah, before we really dive into this game, Carson Wentz, they're 3-0. Wentz is playing really well. Peterson, there's a lot of praise to go around. Deservingly so. When you win in the league, it's not easy to do. I think people, deserve the praise. Now they're struggling. His first 4 games, 4th best in the NFL, a 103.5 passer rating. In the 6 games since then, he's got the worst passer rating in the NFL. Is that Wentz taking steps back? Is that you look around at this offense and he just doesn't have the help? How would you surmise a lot of regression it almost looked like Carson Wentz is having?
Yeah, it's a combination of factors. It is the pass blocking is not as good. They really don't have the receivers. I think the Philadelphia play called their way to a lot of success early on, and teams figured out this is what we need to do against them to slow Wentz down. And there became also a time where they didn't trust Wentz to throw vertical passes, and we talk about that every week, how well he does on vertical passes, which are passes thrown 11 or more yards downfield. Wentz is 2 for 13 yesterday for 47 yards on vertical passes, only 3.6 yards per attempt on vertical throws. He only had like 4.4 yards per attempt for the entire game, but 3.6 on vertical throws. Had 2 interceptions, had a QBR rating of 2, which is, that's, on a scale of 0 to 100, it was 2. It was terrible. And the thing is that, he didn't do much better on short passes. So when you're talking about, and he's had 2 bad decisions, which are what I call when you make a mental error that leads to turnover opportunity. He had 2 of those, and he had a fumble also. The loss was just a bad game all around.
So, we talk about a lot of people locally would surmise that he is taking, that it was a regression feeling, that he's taking some steps back here. Does he look like a different player than the one we saw earlier? Is the drops, is it his lack of talent, is it starting to, bother him a little bit?
Yeah, I think, that's part of it is that he knows he can't trust his receivers. The offensive line hasn't blocked as well. And the coaching staff, for the play calling, were a few weeks there when they were having him, he wouldn't even hit double digits in vertical pass attempts in a game. It made coaching staff made it clear we don't trust you and things. I also think that when it comes to rookies that they tend to hit the rookie wall about this time of year because they're used to playing in college, which is a 13-game season, but they usually have 3 or 4 games that are cream puff games, and you only have to really step your game up a couple, 3 games in the course of the season. So now you get to this level, now you're going to play a really long season. You're having, it's a lot more physical, it's a lot more difficult. A lot of quarterbacks. I can think back to Eli Manning in his rookie season. I remember writing about him back in those days. He was terrible. You could not see if you would have said at the time this guy is going to win 2 Super Bowls and may have a Hall of Fame career. You'd be like, no way. There's no way it could happen. So we got to take it with a grain of salt what he's playing like today. But yeah, there has been a lot of regression from what it was earlier this year.
Let's look at some of his weapons. Nelson Aguilar in particular, who basically came out yesterday and said mentally that he understands that he's having some issues, and he's struggling to catch the ball. He lined up illegally. It took away a touchdown. They then go to him the next play. He drops. Have you seen enough of Nelson Aguilar to realize that this guy is just not an NFL wide receiver? He has NFL talent, it seems like, but does he just not have the makeup to be an NFL wideout?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is you've got to have the makeup for it. It reminds me of there's another USC receiver, Marquise Lee, who Lee a couple years ago, it was probably about 4 years ago now, he was arguably he won the Blitnikoff Award in college football, which is for the best receiver, and he was just a fantastic receiver at all depth levels. And he got to the NFL, and he's just hasn't made the transition, and part of it is a physical perspective where it's just there's a lot of big physical hitters, and I don't think Marquise Lee can stand up to that kind of punishment. And I'm wondering if the same thing with Aguilar. It's, not I want to question the guy's toughness, but you get to the NFL and it's a different league, and you're going to have to take certain types of hits that you probably didn't have to take in college, and they can protect you in different ways in college or play calling. You just can't do that in the NFL. And I think once somebody says that the pressure of the league is getting to them, maybe it's time for to say, okay, he needs to go to another team, because maybe another team can do something with him, but unless you do something drastically different, you can't be throwing a passes. He only had a couple of passes yesterday. He didn't have any passes on short passes, which should be his specialty, and he didn't get targeted once yesterday on those throws.
No, on 70 snaps he was on the field, didn't have one catch yesterday, so he's struggling along. But the rest of the wide receiving core, at one point Russell Wilson had more receiving yards than the receivers on this football team, and it seems like we talk a lot about it, but the Eagles moving forward here, that's a position where they're really going to have to go target. That we know. But did you like the game plan they had yesterday for Carson Wentz against that team? Without the receivers, they went heavy on the tight ends, it seemed like. Even saw them bunched and split out wide, 3 tight ends at a time. And that first drive of the game, they scored. They looked like they were, they had something there, but they got away from it. What'd you think of the game plan the Eagles had yesterday?
Hey, they threw 16 targets to tight ends. They had 13 to Ertz. They had 2 to Burton. They had 1 to Selleck. About 16. But they come up with 8 receptions for, doing the math here in my head, 49, 68 yards. 8 receptions for 68 yards and a touchdown. It's good to get the throws, but you got to be going a little more vertical with that. Seattle, we talked last week about how Seattle has been hit or miss in covering tight ends, and that might be a place to go. Well, it's great to get some dink and dunk passes, but you got to be hitting the longer passes. But that's the thing. When they have Wentz throwing the longer passes, he had the one interception where Chancellor came on. He was playing underneath coverage, and Wentz just did not see him and threw the pass downfield, and an easy interception. And I think that's one of the things where it's just going to take a lot of experience to get him to be able to read defenses better before they're going to allow him to go to vertical passes. Because frankly, they saw a weakness in the Seattle secondary, went after it and had some success with it, but they didn't capitalize on it fully because they didn't throw vertical passes.
You also have a situation where they ran the ball early. They had a couple of big runs. Matthews had a couple of runs. They were running that left side pretty well, and then they seemed like they got away from the run. I know Matthews got hurt and Sproles got hurt, but isn't this a team that is really going to have to stick with the run game if they want to try to, I know they're 5-5, they're still in that playoff mix, but if they want to have any hopes, they got to stick to the run game with this pass attack they have.
Yeah, they really need it. We talked last week about how they were 3rd in the league in my good blocking rate metric that measures run blocking effectiveness. Obviously, they didn't play that well. They did actually a decent job. I don't think they're effective. 38% was their good blocking rate, and their season long was 44. So they were lower than their season long average. So they still did a solid job in run blocking. But again, when you're losing Matthews and losing Sproles, and now you're down to backs, down to Smallwood and Barner. You're just limited in what you can do, and that's the thing. Maybe they need. They've got Matthews as their power back, but he's got an injury history, and he's not the most durable guy. And you got Smallwood, Barner, and Sproles, who all have similar skill sets. So maybe Philadelphia needs to say, instead of having 1 power back and 3 smaller backs, how about maybe a 2-2 split, or 3 and 1 in the other, something. Do something in the other direction, because you just can't be relying on small backs for the whole course of the season.
KC Joyner, ESPN.com NFL Insider here, looking at the Eagles and the Seahawks. We'll go through the NFL in just a minute here, and you look on the defensive side of the ball. Not a lot of pressure yesterday. The Eagles secondary, certainly glaring issues.
Mills was just terrible, and that's the thing. And the thing is, Mills was bad in coverage, and on the 72-yard rush by Procise, he had the edge. He was supposed to shut that down on the. And mind you, the safeties missed their angles too, but it was he was there in the corner, and he should have been able to stop that play for a shorter gain, or at least slow Procise down so you give the safety a chance to get up there and get the better angle. But he blew it entirely, and that's just the thing. When you're doing bad in coverage, and they did do a horrible job in coverage yesterday, or a subpar job in coverage, because they would have some good plays, but then Mills gets beat. And I remember there was a deep crossing route where there was nobody within 10, or probably 5 to 10 yards of the Seattle receiver. There were just too many mistakes of that caliber, and you can't have those mistakes, and you can't have inconsistencies in your secondary. So it's one of those things where the Eagles, we talk about what their needs are going to be for the future. They're going to need to get better receivers, and they're going to need people to cover receivers, because this is a passing league, and right now Philadelphia just doesn't have those players to either pass successfully on offense or stop the pass on defense.
So, I want to go back to Wentz real fast because you look at the development of a young quarterback. Do you think that the lack of talent and weapons he has is holding him back? I mean, is this stunting a little bit of his development? Because this is a guy that looks like he's ready. It just looks like his pieces aren't ready to help him take that step that, as a rookie, sometimes you hit those bumps. He looks like a guy that's ready to jump over some of these bumps, but the veteran, quote-unquote veterans, I mean, they're young receivers. He's got a third-year guy, a second-year guy, and a first-year guy. Actually, two first-year guys. Treggs is, a rookie, right? He's an undrafted rookie, so you got an undrafted rookie. Aguilar's a first-year player, and Matthews is a third-year player. He don't have a lot of help from those guys, but is that holding him back? Does that concern you in his development?
I would just put it this way. Just imagine for a second if you switch Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott and said, okay, let's put Carson Wentz behind in the Dallas offense. Let's put Dak Prescott in the Eagles offense. You think Carson Wentz is going to have the same success? I think he is, or he's going to have similar success. I think he absolutely could. If you get behind the Dallas offensive line, you say, okay, you've got Zeke to hand the ball off to. You've got Witten for your dink and dunk receiver. You've got Cole Beasley, a top-notch dink and dunk receiver. You've got Bryant now, who's got come back after some injuries and back and getting in the vertical game finally for that offense. If you put Wentz into that environment, I think he's doing very much what Dak Prescott's doing. I think you pick Dak Prescott, and this offense is okay. Dak Prescott, as good as he is, and Dak, is a legit MVP case for Dak Prescott. You put him in the Eagles' offense and say, okay, this is your offensive line. These are your backs. These are your receivers. Now go. I think he's having the same problems.
KC Joyner, let's look at some of the key matchups and get your take on some of these yesterday. Giants-Chicago. Sloppy game. Giants get the job done, though, right? I mean, late in that game, they hold on. They get two quick scores out of the half. They're down 16-6. That's an ugly game, but you know what? Those are the kind of ugly wins you got to get if you're the Giants. What do you take from them moving forward?
I tell you, and they get the ugly one without using Odell Beckham Jr. very much. Fantasy owners were pulling their hair out yesterday by how Odell, and I think he only had 5 receptions for, it was like 60 yards. It wasn't a very good game at all for Odell Beckham. So to be able to pull out that kind of game and say, okay, we're going to Shepard, we're going to other targets, that's a big plus. And their running game is finally starting to get a little bit better, where their running game had been abysmal all year. You're starting to see to where that running game is getting to be a solid running game. So they're peaking at the right time.
All right, Washington last night. I guess you got to start taking Washington serious. I mean, last year it was about this time when they started to take off. They put a 42 spot up last night. Cousins 375. Robert Kelly for 137. Washington, what do you take from them moving forward? And what do you take from Green Bay, Philadelphia's next opponent?
I think that game said more about Green Bay's defense than about Washington's offense. Now, I'm not taking anything away from how well Cousins has played of late, and Kelly's been a good back, but Green Bay's secondary might be the worst in the NFL right now. They've been injury-riddled, and the players they've got back there just are not good. You can go across the board, and they're terrible. So I think that I'm not going to buy entirely into Washington yet, just because I want to see them do that. Put up a kind of a caliber performance like that against a better defense. But against Philadelphia, if you're trying to fix your passing wells on offense, you couldn't ask for a better dose of medicine than the Green Bay secondary.
KC Joyner, we're looking back at the Week 11 games that really had the impact here. And another one, you got what Washington did, you had what New York did, and then, of course, Dallas cruising along. Dallas. Baltimore had the lead in that game, and they were running the ball very effective early in that game, but just, I guess, too much Dallas.
Yeah, and the thing is, again, Dallas got Bryant involved in the offense again, and Zeke did not have a fantastic game because that Baltimore run defense is a top-notch run defense. I mean, they shut down Le'Veon Bell recently, so I mean that's a really to be able, and that's the thing for Dallas to say, okay, Zeke didn't have a great game, had a good game, but he didn't have a great game, but wasn't carrying us, and we had to go elsewhere with it, and they were able to do that. So we talk a lot of times on the show about finding a secondary way to win that if your primary method of winning is taken away from you, can you go to a backup plan? Dallas is now showing we've got a backup plan.
I know we're on the short week this week, so we probably won't get a chance to talk again. We'll be back Monday when we preview the Eagles and the Packers, so we'll get deeper on that game. But you just mentioned about Green Bay and the defense there. You look at a situation with Arizona. Minnesota puts up 30 against Arizona. What's wrong with that Arizona defense that, man, we thought this could have been a Super Bowl team?
Well, Arizona, I mean, they give up a lot of the return plays, so that
That's
was
true.
a big part. Yeah, that's a big part. But they didn't have Tyrann Mathieu yesterday, so that was he serves both as he covers deep and he also takes on slot receivers. So that was an issue for them, and I think their offense is putting them into some subpar situations as well. So I think that Arizona's just got.
Palmer? Is Palmer the issue there?
Mm-hmm. Palmer really is the issue there. He makes a lot of bad decisions, which has always been the case for him. The receiving core is better than what it's showing to be, but Palmer's just not hitting a vertical passes. Some quarterbacks, when they get to that age, can fight through that age wall. When you get to 35, you tend to see in all athletes a huge drop-off. And Carson Palmer, I think he's 36 going on 37, and he's showing it very much so. I don't know if he's going to be one of those rare exceptions like Manning or Brady who can play much past that 35 age mark.
Are you buying into Detroit?
I almost don't have a choice given given the way they've played thus far. You can see enough weaknesses on that team, though. I'm not sold that their defense is that good. I think they've got some coverage weaknesses. I think I like Stafford, but he still makes some of the same mistakes he did in past years. So I can see them making the playoffs, but I don't see them making a lot of noise if they get there.
Disappointed yesterday in Tennessee, or not ready yet?
Disappointed, but not terribly disappointed, because this is a team that's very much trending upward. Their offensive line might be the best in the NFL, and that includes Dallas. They've got one of the best good blocking rates in the league, and they're pass blocking well too. So, and they were probably the worst offensive line in the league last year. So they're going to be what Dallas has done the past couple of years, building around the offensive line. That's what Tennessee's going to be able to do. So if I'm Tennessee, I'm frustrated about yesterday, but I'm thinking long term.
It's amazing how quick some of these, and that's where, like, if your team's struggling, some of these teams make quick turnarounds. You can fix things up in the NFL pretty quickly, and we look at some of these teams that Cincinnati, Philadelphia's going to play them in a couple of weeks here. I know they had a couple of injuries, but what has been their problem all year long?
It's been a number of things. They haven't got the explosiveness in offense, and now they've got Bernard's been injured, Green's injured. So I mean, they're losing. They're already their offense was already challenged, and Hill's had a good year, so they can still lean on Hill in Bernard's absence, but he's not a pass-catching back, so now they don't have a pass-catching back, and they have nobody in their passing game outside of Green. I mean, the rest of the receivers are just mediocre. So you add all that to some defense not playing quite as well. I think they've had a couple of bad breaks go their way, but still, that team is not too much. That team isn't much better than what their record says.
Two things in this game. One, how did Goff play, if no one got a chance on the East Coast to see that game? And two, Miami, should I take them serious?
I posted on Twitter. Somebody posted out the drive listings for Miami. It was all punts, and like turnovers for the first 12 drives, and the last 2 were touchdowns. I said, I don't know who should be more embarrassed about this: the Rams for giving up 2 touchdowns late, or the Dolphins for playing as bad as they did in the beginning. Goff played just a horrible game yesterday. And at the end of the game, when they were trying to come back, and they only needed, I think it was 14-10. So, but they had an opportunity to do something. You could just see when they sent him out there for that last drive, though, he looked completely lost, and you could tell, I don't belong out here. I can't do this. And you could just see it in his face. And of course, they didn't come anywhere close to doing it. And Gurley had one big play, and then he got shut down. I just think. I think the difference between where Goff is and where Wentz is, even with Wentz's struggles right now, I still think the chasm between those two is gargantuan in Philadelphia's favor.
All right. We'll have more from KC Joyner Monday next week, Eagles and Packers. We'll wish you a happy Thanksgiving. But before, of course, KC Joyner, ESPN.com NFL Insider. You can get his fantasy, his NFL, his college, but also check him out at WWE on ESPN. Were you shocked last night with what you saw?
Shocked, but now realizing that Goldberg's going to come back and do more matches. I think they probably figured that they needed to show today's generation, because I've got 2 kids, and I had to explain to them, here's why Goldberg was so cool back in the day. And I could explain the whole Goldberg and how he dominated and destroyed people matches, but you have to actually see it to really capture what he is. And so I think the WB said, you know what, we're going to have Goldberg win this match in a squash, just go ahead and destroy Lesnar, and then and we can have them wrestle again. People aren't going to give up on Lesnar after one match, but this will show people this is why Goldberg was so cool. So that was the biggest shock, but also seeing Shane O'Mac jumping off of the top rope and through the table and doing the coast to coast and getting knocked out. Those were. Wow, he's got to stop doing that.
It was a good show. It really was, but I was scratching my head as to why the writers made the decision to make it go the way they did last night, which is what makes that genre very intriguing. The psychology of why the writers do what they do. I still can't figure it out. What were they thinking? I don't get it.
They were figuring that they wanted to show this audience, today's audience, here's why Goldberg's so cool. So if Lesnar goes and beats him next time, now people go, okay, because otherwise, if you beat Goldberg yesterday, and mind you, I thought Lesnar was going to win, but if you beat Goldberg yesterday and you bring him back for a follow-up match, people are going to go, wow, we already saw him lose. Why do we need to see him again? So I think they figured they had to give him the victory so people would want to see another match out of him. If you're going to give him the victory, why not let him get a squash? But, yeah, the worry is what do you do with Lesnar? Because if people don't think Lesnar's a tough guy, but...
Well, exactly. It hurts him. That's what my point is he was the guy you build up. You've been writing and writing and writing. This guy is unbeatable, and then he gets squashed last night by a guy who hasn't been in the ring for 12 years. I don't know. I scratched my head on that one a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, I think people still believe in Lesnar, the character, because Undertaker loses one match at WrestleMania, you're still going to see the next one because you know he's that good. I think they figure Lesnar's character can take the hit, but if he goes out there against Goldberg next time, he has to get the win, or else people are going to start giving up on that character.
KC Joyner over at WWE on ESPN. Also check him out at ESPN.com, NFL Insider section, and of course every Monday and Thursday, but no show on Thursday. So KC, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, and we will catch up with you for Eagles and Packers on Monday night.
Hey, happy Thanksgiving to you too.